We're live. Nice. Notification just came in. All right. So, yeah, we'll wait a few minutes to let some people jump onto the stream before we get started. All right. All right. Well, might as well get started. Jonathan, you want to introduce the topic this week?
Yep. So something that I'm starting to do, I don't want to say a lot of by any means, but I've found some opportunities where FBM makes sense. And generally speaking, I've always been FBA. So, we talked and I thought it would just be a good conversation piece, not to dive into Keepa and how we analyze in that realm, but just like the pros and cons, how much we do them, when we do them. There certainly are some nuances to it, right? Where it makes sense that maybe a beginner seller hasn't thought of. And I like integrating it. Kind of when I think about it, it's like if I do any prep and pack myself, which I still do, some of, like it's not that much added work, and there could be some really good opportunities with FBM. So I definitely wanted to dive into that with you.
Yeah, it's definitely a topic that has like so many different avenues we could talk about, but I think keeping it high level, talking about the pros and cons. We can go into another discussion, in the future about, what to look for on Keepa charts and really dive into the data of it. But I think today, it's going to be a nice high level conversation. And let's start with what items are you FBMing, or what types of items? What's your philosophy on it? What time of the year are you more likely to FBM versus FBA?
Yeah, so something that I'm really that I've leaned into is seeking out and finding out of stock items or items that are on their way to being out of stock. And when it comes to those items, time is of the essence because typically there's going to be enough sellers on your coattails soon enough. So days or weeks make a huge difference. And if you do FBA, I can order something today, do everything right, even if I prep and pack myself. So the quickest way possible. We've all had instances where products can take a week or 2 weeks or much longer to go live, right? So for those, that's like my 1A. For out of stock items or minimal sellers, especially if there's high demand, I want to list products ASAP. And if I think that that's the only opportunity for me for this product to make sense or for me to really maximize it, that's to me when it's a no-brainer. Have it shipped to my house. I could literally buy it today. In some instances, have it later today or tomorrow, even the next day, and then I'm listing it right away, allowing for instant feedback. And that instant feedback is one, sales, but for two, it kind of lets me know, should I also replenish these items before other people get on it really quickly? Again, if I sent this product out and it's the first time I'm selling this product and I don't get feedback for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, maybe, I missed that opportunity probably of that initial replen right off the bat. And so for me, just to start things off, like I like out of stock items where time is of the essence. Let's say I order like 20 of something. First time, maybe I'm the only seller. Maybe I'll list them all FBM, go to bed, and see what I wake up to. If of those 25 sold, maybe I'll keep them all for FBM and buy more of them. And then once I get more of them, then I'll ship off whatever I have left FBA or like split it up, or let's say only one sells. Maybe I'll keep 3 on hand and then sell the other 16 FBA. So I have some for the immediate sales while the others are going to go live because FBA is always going to have an advantage in my opinion. So that's really like the core of me doing FBM. It's never for preference. It's never to make a quicker buck and turn my cash around quicker. It's typically only when time is of the essence, and that's when it makes the most sense. What about you?
Yeah, timing is huge. I'm not doing a ton of testing with my FBM purchases. I'm most of the time, if I'm gonna buy, if I'm gonna list FBM, it's because I purchased to sell FBM. Like I have to see the chart, look at that, it makes sense, and that is kind of my that's what's going to make me want to buy the product. Also, I am the person that will merchant fulfill some larger items, if it makes sense, right? If I'm going to make, right, I merchant fulfilled this one product that was like a 12K rank. It was I was buying it for $70 and selling it for 160, and shipping was probably like $25 on it. It was like a 25-pound product, but it was, at like 28 inches in its biggest dimension. So it was a big product, but shipping was $25. I was going to make like $45 and like a 70% ROI on it. And no one was FBAing it. I mean, there was not one FBA seller. And I sold 16 of them in 2 weeks. And I got sick and tired of carrying these heavy boxes to the post office to ship out, but I did make some good profit on that. And I said, if the sale came around again, I would definitely probably buy more. And I haven't seen the sale yet. That was probably 6 months ago, but yeah, stuff like that. I'm definitely willing to put the work in, because if the profit's there, I mean, that's a huge way to boost your margins. And then obviously seasonality is like the biggest reason that I will be merchant fulfilling certain items, whether that's, backpacks, back to school, holiday items. I don't sell a ton of like Christmas decorations or, Halloween costumes or stuff like that. But if I do find a good listing with some of those items, I'm not afraid to just specifically FBM. During the Christmas season, I'm going to be FBMing a lot of things, but so are a ton of people. But getting to do it more often throughout the year gives you that experience, and you kind of, by the time like heavy FBM rolls around, like back to school or like the Christmas season, you have that experience and you kind of know what to expect.
Right. Yeah. A couple of things there. I want just to clarify, like I agree, like I never really do FBM for testing. Like it might be my first time buying the product, but at this point, I understand if something's going to sell. Maybe I've sold the brand, or you just keep a charts at this point that are really good ones. So it's not so much like testing, does this product sell? It's how quickly am I going to sell this? I also do I take size into consideration, because FBM, you're keeping things at your house. So like what you just said, it's probably less competition because fewer people are willing to store bigger items, heavy items at their house, like myself. So like I have some hazmat items, like small perfumes and stuff like that, that right off the bat, I noticed with hazmat, you typically have less competition. So that's always a good thing. And typically you're only competing with other FBM sellers. There are certainly FBA as well, but just as a general statement, less than your normal product. So like that's something that I've become comfortable with, is like some small hazmat stuff. As far as the seasonality, to touch on that, I've learned the hard way, lesson learned, but you think if you have like a Halloween thing, right? And let's say it's a costume or whatever, that's a seasonal product that there's like a hard end cap, right? So like come first week in November, no one's really buying costumes unless maybe they're looking for a big discount on something for next year or whatever, right?
Yep.
So you're playing a game that you'll never be able to fully master when it's going to get checked in. It's just too many things out of your control. And so something like Halloween, unless you're getting it there so far in advance, I would certainly, the last thing I want to do is keep some or get 20 items checked in the first week in November, second week in November. And I know it's just an instant loss on those products. At least FBM, if I sell them in time and they're the right products, I'll at least break even or something to that effect, and you have more control over the instantaneous nature of it. So for seasonal products too, that's something that certain seasonal products. Like a good example of on the alternative where I would FBA a seasonal product like peppermint coffee or pumpkin spice coffee. It's a fall item, but people, if it's available, people will drink pumpkin spice in December. You know what I
Year
mean? So
year round even. I mean, some people
right,
want it, whenever.
right. So that's a good example of there's no need to FBM that, and you can have all the advantages of FBA. Um, like it's just you have to really think about that when it comes to that. And we were talking before this, but another thing for people to think about, I've talked about this before. When it comes to FBA, let's say a customer receives a box that's slightly damaged or the wrong size or something's off with it, and they leave you negative feedback. Well, if it's FBA, 99% of the time, you just go to the feedback and you say this was FBA, and it's instantly struck down, right? One
Yep.
of the advantages of FBA, I'm not saying to lean on that and do things wrong because it might catch up to you, but when it comes to FBM, there's nothing to hide behind. And so you want to be packaging your stuff very properly. You want to be using unmarked boxes or bubble wrap bags or whatever it is, because there is nothing between you and the customer. It's just you and them, and it's there's no out of Amazon FBA for that. So that's something to keep in mind too. If you're going to do it right.
Yep. I agree. Seth, thanks for joining up, dude. How's it going? Yeah, if you guys have any questions about FBM or merchant fulfiller, or you want our take on something, definitely leave a comment. We'd be happy to answer. But yeah, I think FBM is it's so much timing, right? Like, because you said that lag. I mean, I've had times where I've gotten burned on many products. I mean, this happens all the time where you buy something, you maybe found it a little too easy. You send 15 units into the prep center and they take an extra week and a half. All of a sudden you look at the listing, you're like, man, I should probably reprice this. You go to reprice and the price is, 15% lower than you originally wanted to list it at. And now you see that, an extra 30 sellers are on the listing. And a lot of those sellers are FBM, and some of them did get the buy box right away. So that's tricky, but I'm not one of those people. There's plenty of like ways to go about it, but I'm not really one of those people that will jump on a listing knowing it's going to tank to try to merchant fulfill the stock before the tanking happens. I mean, there's maybe very few scenarios where I actually try to do that. But yeah, for the most part, I'm not really, I'm going to merchant fulfill if I want to. And if I'm sending FBA, I'm not going to switch most likely because it tanked, or if I, hoping not to buy, tanking products, but that's kind of my, you have any thoughts on like that aspect of it?
No, I'm with you there. Like, again, like for me, the only real time, I mean, to me, when you think about it, for out of stock items, it makes a lot of sense, right? Unless you're just so gung ho on I don't touch product, and if that case, like that's just not part of your model, so be it, right? But no, I just, for the most part, it's really the only time I'm really doing it is typically an item that it's out of stock, so I want to be selling it immediately, and FBM is the most immediate way to do that. And that's generally speaking the only time I'm doing it. Or if I have a deadline of a seasonal product, as we just mentioned too. But that's kind of the gist of it. So yeah, I don't really have experience necessarily like playing that game a little bit. I will say this. I'm curious your take. I think something that is commonly talked about with FBM for beginners that are tight on cash or whatever. Oh, FBM to get your money back quicker. Like, I'm sure you get your money back a little bit quicker, but like that'll never be part of my game. It's never been part of my game plan. I guess it's just like, to me, FBA is going to get a higher price and quicker and more of the buy box. So like, I don't know, in the big scheme of things, I don't know how much you win. And I did want to say before I forget, something I do highly recommend, if you're doing prep and pack yourself to any capacity, let's say I receive 100 items today, right? But I know no matter what, they're not going out the door before tomorrow at the earliest. There's really no downside in listing some of those products FBM right away. you might be pleasantly surprised and you have nothing to lose whatsoever. And maybe some of those items are like high demand, low supply, and you don't even realize how high demand they are. Or maybe there's 5 sellers, but they all only have one piece of stock, right? So you might be pleasantly surprised. There's no downside to that as long as you make sure if you do send them in FBA because they don't sell, just remove them from FBM so you're not stuck with that. Been there, done that, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think we all have.
Yeah, definitely. And just to touch on one point that you mentioned at the during your little spiel there, you said something how yeah, merchant fulfilling to beat other sellers instead of merchant fulfilling to like actually sell and you know you're going to get buy box share. A good example of this is like after the Christmas season, there I always have a bunch of products in my basement, right, in storage that didn't quite sell by Christmas. And then basically FBA stuff starts checking in, and then all of a sudden your buy box share just tanks. Like
Right.
it goes way down because you know that one product that you had 3 sellers on now has 10, and all 7 of those new sellers are FBA, so they're going to get the buy box most of the time. So
Right.
you'll notice stuff like that, but yeah, for the most part, yeah, I'm with you. I'm not really like trying to beat the market to merchant fulfill. But I that's actually I've never tried. I've never really thought about it that way. I think I have tried that where I'll literally, if I find some, I'm grocery shopping and then I find a couple items, I will list them in the store.
Yeah.
Like why wait 3 hours till I get home? List them now. I mean, they might sell by the time I get home. I can go right to the post office if I really, So that's,
Yeah.
I mean, it's like you said, there's no downside to listing them. Even if you're going to send them FBA, just make sure you delete your FBM stock, and
Yep.
can't really go wrong there.
Oh yeah. I would just say to anyone listening, like, just make sure, even if you don't buy it at the store, have it in your cart, like,
Yeah.
like, or even, you could see a delivery has come to your home, but you're not home to check it. Well, what if something's damaged, right? So technically you really can't sell it FBM, right? My point being, make sure you have the product in hand and you have it physically checked out before you're willing to list it,
Yeah, that's a good point. Let's look at the comments here. Philly asks, how often do you guys use coupons and discounted gift cards to make products available profitable, and why do you use them?
You want to go first?
Yeah, I can talk about this. I use gift cards a decent amount. I'm not like, if to me, if something is borderline profitable, maybe we're at like 26%, and then like a gift card puts me at like 31%. Still a little risky to me. I mean, other people are going to probably see the same thing and buy. Yeah, I mean, they're definitely a great way to add margin. And I guess maybe, you could also look at that and say, well, most people are going to pass on that 26, 25%, and you putting the 4% gift card in there puts you at 30 when everyone else is passing it at 26. Yeah, you just got to really understand the chart and make sure that, you're spending a bunch of money on a gift card that you're going to use to purchase product. You just want to make sure that that's worth it to you, and that, really vet out the product as well, because I've had a couple times where I bought the product with a gift card, had to return it or whatever reason, or, it wasn't it was the wrong product, whatever, return it to the store. And then I'm sitting with, $200-300 in gift cards. And eventually I, use them to purchase other inventory, but just really, do your research when you're actually using gift cards. I mean, they can be a huge bonus, because sometimes like Card Cash and Raise, they'll go up to 10-12% on a gift card. Now that's a huge margin for people that don't even consider discounted gift cards. So they can be really helpful. Just make sure you're really researching before actually spending the money on them, because once you got the gift card, you don't have the product. You have basically, a card for the product.
Yeah. I first off, I had like a bad first experience with it. My first time doing it, I think I bought like, I'm going to make up a number, $400 worth of gift cards. They all came to me in like $10 increments. And then I was only allowed to use like 2 at a time. So many checkouts. Right. And
Yeah.
so in theory, I think it makes sense. At scale, it could add up. But I would kind of approach it the same way I approach cashback, like Rakuten. If there's not enough profit without that, then that's not the right product for me. Okay. Now,
Yep.
I'm not saying on the outlier 15% day and stuff, something on the cusp. Let's say I always look for 30% ROI, but it's 28 and there's 15% cash back and a discount, gift card. Yeah, I get that. I kind of see that stuff as like gravy. And to me, honestly, maybe because I had a bad taste in my mouth from that experience, but like getting duped one time or stuck with a couple $100 one time all makes it not worth it. And that extra amount of time that I have to sift through that stuff, I'd rather kind of just be sourcing. As far as coupons, unless something is an out of stock item or a unique Keepa chart where buying it at full price still is profitable, I'm using coupons essentially every purchase. So really, unless something is out of stock or there's something very unique about it, hard to get for some reason, coupons is like 99% of the time, and I'm not exaggerating. Same with you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's very few times, unless it's a smaller site that's not running a discount, but it's, not easy to find. There's very few times when I'm actually not using a discount. But Capital One Shopping, I mean, there's certain times where you just run it and it tries to figure out your discounts, and it'll stack sometimes, right? It'll find ones that you just can't find by
Yeah.
just like Rakuten maybe offers a couple, but yeah, definitely use your cashback extensions to try to look for those discounts and coupons, because those things are super valuable, and you got to have some margin built in. Even if everyone has the same discount, at least you're not the one person that is buying at full price and everyone else has $3 cheaper than you, and now they can afford for the product price to tank a little bit more than you can, and their break even at the current price, you're down $3, right? Like it just is a no brainer to use those, but you got to find them.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And by the way, if you're ever close on something, put it in your cart, just run Capital One Shopping, and sometimes you'll be pleasantly surprised. You'll get a very unexpected 20% off that makes it a no-brainer, or at least get you where you want to be. And a lot of sites use Shopify, stuff like Welcome 15, Welcome 10,
Save
New
10,
10.
extra 10.
Yeah, like you get used to that stuff, and that stuff makes a difference. It really does. So that's definitely a big part of the game for sure.
And here's a pro tip: anybody watching, you're lucking out on this one. Sometimes you can add it to your cart, don't actually make the purchase, close out of the tab, and maybe 30 minutes later they'll send you an email saying, hey, you left some stuff in your cart, here's an extra 10% off. Boom,
That's
you
a
get
good tip.
coupon. And that I've had that actually over the last 2 days. I had that, and I made a $400 purchase because of it. So
Yeah, no,
helped me out quite a bit.
playing hard to get. I've even seen like you just go to a new tab and somehow it senses that, and there's a pop-up. Oh, here's 10% off or whatever
Yeah,
it is,
exactly. Yeah.
So
Go try some things. All right.
for
Philly
sure.
had one more in there too. What makes products easy to find and cause products to tank in price?
So I think there's a couple of things that come to mind. It really comes down to like what makes it. I guess what makes it less tankable, if is a variety of things. So let me go that way. Like if you go to Nike, there's a lot of eyeballs on Nike. If it's on the first page, a lot of easy access. So the accessibility of your competition is certainly one of those things,
Big.
right? And I'm trying. It's like in my heart, I know there's a variety of things. So like if you have anything off the top of your head, I know I have more to say about this. I can't spit it out.
There's definitely somewhat, it's not a full inverse correlation, but there's definitely some sort of an inverse correlation between tanking products and ease of purchase, right? Like there's, like you said, if it's on the homepage of Nike, or if any, Walgreens runs 20% off on vitamins, and it's the first row or the first page even of the products that show up when you click into that discounted section, you just have to expect that some sellers are going to jump on the listing, and some of it's trial and error. Right? You have to like sometimes make the purchase, even if it's a little seems risky, just to understand like, okay, did people actually find this as easy as I did? How many people are buying this? And then see what happens to the price, right? It doesn't hurt to just do a test buy of like, 3 to 7 to 10 items. And if you bought 5, right, expecting to make $5 each, and then by the time they all sell, you made $1 each on average or broke even. It was a good learning experience, right? You understood like, okay, that discount was ran. I found that product pretty easily, and 15 more sellers jumped on the listing. Like, just try to make that analysis and try to find some comparisons between what you expected, what happened, and why did those things happen. And you're going to be better. It's just going to help you learn that much quicker, and that kind of like sourcing profitable product learning curve is going to really flatten out for you pretty quickly.
Yeah. Another thing too is like, I think, how complex is the Keepa chart? Like, is it a straight up Keepa chart, no variations, always an awesome sales rank, well-known product, and maybe it's just been out of stock, like a Nike item that's been out of stock. So something that historically is at 100 sellers all of a sudden comes back in stock. There's going to be a lot of sellers that catch up on that, right? So like anything that can make it unique, it can create a moat. And if you stack them, it creates a really good moat. So what I mean by that is like a unique Keepa chart, maybe no sales rank. Maybe there's a lot of different variations. Maybe there's an out of stock item with no sales rank that happens to be a multi-pack. That's a variation. So the more nuances you can stack, the bigger moat you create, and the less tanking that happens from my experience. Also, a lot of tanking happens when not just like Nike, but a site that comes to mind is like Kiehl's, if anyone's familiar with that. Like when it's very obvious successful products, but then they go buy one, get one free, but everybody gets an email blast, right? And it's like,
Yeah.
the code is on the website. You don't have to be in the know about it, right? So something I would just always encourage. A good reminder of this is when the holidays come, right? There's always these different discounts and stuff. Like, it doesn't matter. I always say, like, it doesn't matter if you get something 99% off from Nike if everybody else also has access easily to 99% off. It's not about what you pay and what you buy. It's about what you pay and buy relative to your competition. That's what it really comes down to. And so just always ask yourself, how hard was this for me to find? Did I have to do anything out of the ordinary? Is this a unique site? Did I use a specialty discount code? What makes me think that this is not going to just be crowded by other people? And you got to ask yourself those questions, and trial and error, and you just kind of you dabble and you learn.
And when you're asking yourself those questions too, sometimes it might be enough to make you not purchase the product, but sometimes it's still like it's a good lead. Just it might help you determine how many you should be buying. Like if you think you could sell, if the sales rank and everything is, and the current offer count's telling you to buy 75 units, but it's such an easy find right on Nike.com homepage. Well, maybe you start with 10, 15 and see what happens. And then if, the sale comes around again and you saw, okay, this one, just didn't do what I expected it to, then the next time it comes around, or if the sale's still running, right? If you use our quick list FBM tricks, you can maybe sell some of them and buy before the sale ends. But you just got to really don't just buy to buy and say, I need to I need to spend my money. So I'm going to buy because it looks great. Really dig in a little bit further, and you'll be surprised at how solid of leads you'll start to build up.
Yeah, no, totally agree. Also, leads list. Sometimes if it's a really great item, it's easy to assume if you happen to be a part of leads list, and that's where you see it. And then just with time, like as I'm thinking about this, and I don't say this with any sense of arrogance whatsoever. I've put in reps. I've 4 years in, so like you kind of just understand a little bit more with time. Like, oh, that. And something else, preventing tanking is kind of impossible because ultimately you can't control what other people do, right? at least to some degree when it comes to that. All you can do is weigh best and worst case scenario. And so if you're ever concerned, I like to ask myself, what's the lowest this has ever sold for in the relatively recent history? And if I'm good with that, whether that mean breaking even, losing a buck, making a buck relative to the upside, if you're willing to do that, I mean, there's not a whole lot of downside to that, but just know with time, like, at least for me, again, not saying this with any arrogance, it's because you just get better at it and you just kind of know little cues to look for, and it just becomes like a natural thing. But that being said, you can do everything perfect, textbook perfect. There's still things in this business that are out of your control and that are unpredictable. And you just have to be willing to accept that and learn from it and just say, I read the chart okay, like this was out of my control type of thing, and that's okay. It's a numbers game.
Yep. Yep. I agree. Scott is asking, what do you look for in trying to find FBM items? I buy stuff thinking it will move FBM, but find often it won't move, and I have to send it FBA. It's a good question.
So kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier, like I never seek out, or I never seek out something with the thought of this will be a great FBM item. I happen to buy items and sometimes it lends well to FBM, but I'm never actively personally seeking FBM just because of all the common reasons. I don't want to store them at my house. I want them, to be listed as prime, and command a couple extra bucks. So for me, and again, I don't seek it out, but again, it comes back to out of stock items. If I get them, I'll say I want to be first, so I'm going to send them to me. But I don't. But that first it comes to finding the products, then deciding to FBM. I'm never going, what can I FBM, and let me go find those.
Yeah, it's just a lot more work, right? Like you can decide to do that. And again, my VA finds a lot of creative leads. And if you're willing to merchant fulfill, some items are really solid specifically for merchant fulfill. You can send them FBA, right? I've had items where, there's only 3 sellers on the listing. They're all merchant fulfill, and it's not a huge item, right? It's really easy to merchant fulfill. So I bought a couple, I merchant fulfilled them. Awesome. All right. I got the buy box a little bit here and there. I sold my 10 units, I think, in like a couple weeks. And then I'm thinking to myself, I could probably sell this a lot more often if I was the only FBA seller on the listing, right? There's only 3 FBM sellers, and they were all priced pretty well. I could probably even increase my price a little bit FBA and then get the buy box a lot more often because there are no other FBA sellers. So that's what I did. And yeah, exactly what I thought would happen happened. The price went up a little bit, matched my higher buy box, and I got the buy box share more often than I did when I was merchant fulfilling. So
yeah,
the charts will tell you, they can tell you which items could be good merchant fulfill, but just know, unless it's like strictly right, like most merchant fulfill sellers are getting the buy box share and they're getting it at a lower price than FBA. And you're seeing like, well, if I send it FBA, I might not get the buy box as much because I got to price it higher to be profitable. I mean, there's just so many different like intricacies to the, an FBM chart and what makes it worth merchant fulfilling. But if you're willing to put in the work, there's definitely charts out there that will show you like, I could probably merchant fulfill this, but just know that most of the time, if you send it FBA and there's mostly merchant fulfill sellers on the listing, you do have a good chance of still getting plenty of sales and buy box share.
Hey, I got a question for you, Alex. So like when you do FBM, I'm sure this has happened to you, and it shows delivered, and someone's like, "Hey, it shows delivered, but I didn't receive it." What's your response? How do you handle that?
Yeah, it's I'm always a little like, skeptical of what actually is going on, but I'll check the tracking number myself. I'll, double check everything. And then I usually tell them to call the shipping company, call USPS, call UPS, and confirm the delivery location. And sometimes they will actually do that, right? And they'll message back and say, "Hey, I talked to them. They said they couldn't, they said it was delivered. I still don't see it, whatever." And then I'll say, I'll maybe give them a refund, but sometimes they won't respond back, right? And then I assume that they're trying to scam me or get the product, get a refund and then keep the product that they actually did receive, but claiming they didn't.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's kind of like a hard one to really like sift out. But if you are giving them, right, if you give the buyer like a task to do before you will refund them, that seems
Yeah.
reasonable, right? It's not like I'm asking them to do something crazy. I'm doing that, asking them what, any normal seller would ask. And if they're willing to do that and still message you and say, "Hey, yeah, I did it," and it's not, I couldn't find it, then maybe you just kind of give them the benefit of the doubt and give them the refund.
Yeah. No.
What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so that's happened. I mean, it's happened to me over the years, but just recently, so it's top of mind. And I'm always super PC. I never assume anyone's scamming, even if they are. Um, and my go-to is kind of just like, very cordial. Hey, I'm sorry you're experiencing some issues. Um, and I'm paraphrasing here, but at the same time, as you can see, it shows delivered. I basically I say I upheld my end of the bargain. I shipped it on time. It's showing delivered on time. I would say here's a couple of things that you can please check on, and then if not, we'll work to figure out a resolution. Are you sure your shipping address is the address you're checking? Could they have placed it if they're expecting their mailbox, could they have placed it somewhere that someone could leave boxes, right? And yeah, check with the shipping company. And if there's any issues, I'm happy to help. And so just let me know. And doing that, I have found that usually I very rarely get responses back after that. And then depending on the price, I get, for me, I know some people get caught up in principle and I never do, not with this game. So like, it's not worth the headache to refund someone $20 or $30. I know it stinks, and I know at a principle, it's crappy, and sometimes a piece of a POS could win, but like it's just the game. Like
It's
if
part of it. It's part of it. Yeah.
and by the way, that is pretty infrequent, especially because I don't do that much FBM. But shipping on time, packaging it properly, you do the right things. Those instances are the exception to the rule.
Yeah, definitely outliers. And I think we both said that pretty well. Philly, very informative, interesting and informative. Thank you guys very much. Can you watch sourcing videos? Appreciate the questions, Philly. Michael asks, when I ship FBM and they say they didn't get it, I just tell them to file an A to Z claim. Yep, that works as well. Seth, what encourages you guys to document the Amazon process? It's a
Go
good
ahead.
question. For me, I feel like it's a good way to network. I think posting, and I've been selling on Amazon long enough where I feel pretty knowledgeable in the space, and getting to meet other knowledgeable people like Jonathan. We get to connect. We've shared leads with each other in the past, and that just wouldn't happen if you're not putting yourself out there. You're not, making friends with others in the space, because no matter how good you are at sourcing, or no matter, how experienced you are in the business, there's always somebody that can add or provide value to you. So if you're doing the same to other people, it's kind of a win-win, right? So you can, share leads with people, or put out content, and people will resonate. Some people will resonate with that, and others will know things you don't know. So there's really no downside to putting content out, or even documenting your process, right? Like shipping, it just shows people that you're interested and that you care to learn more about what you're doing.
For me, it's interesting. I've always been like entrepreneurial, like little side hustles as long as I can remember. And like when I started FBA, I found a group called Hustle Buddies during COVID when I started. And quickly I was like, this dude's making bank off of coaching and courses and stuff like that. And I'm like this isn't revolutionary stuff, to be very honest with you. And I was just like, maybe if I document my process, document it, which I started kind of with, and then I just continued on with it. Went from documenting to now becoming more of like, I don't know. I'm 4 years in. I'm pretty knowledgeable about online arbitrage, and I also knew that like I'm authentic and honest and open. So like, all that to say, I didn't know exactly what good things it would lead to, but I knew it could lead to good things. And so, as Alex just mentioned, the connections to people, just from being able to ask people questions to sharing leads, that in itself has probably made me more than any coaching or coursing could ever make me, is just the ability to like share leads with other very knowledgeable sellers. Beyond that, to be very transparent, I think with time I will create something. I don't know if it's necessarily a course, but like niche products, like on sourcing, or just, I'm in the trenches every day. Like I literally source every single day. So I have a wealth of knowledge. And so if people are looking for knowledge at this point, I feel like why not be someone to offer that knowledge and to diversify and create another income stream. I think there's some bad association, because like any niche, any genre, there's good and bad eggs. Well, I know who I am. I'm very comfortable with that, and I know I'm authentic and honest, and I know I'm doing this day in and day out. So all that to say, like at this point, I think I continue to do it because the connections, and I still don't know what that is, but one day I do hope to do, whether it be like cohorts, coaching, I don't know yet, but taking this information and creating another stream of income while helping other people also create another, get better at it. Like, to be very transparent with you.
Yep.
Because
exactly.
let me just chime into one last thing. It takes a long time to create content. It takes mental space. It takes editing. I think longer than the average person would realize. And so I say all that to say, like, for anyone that just says they do it out of the kindness of their heart, like they like helping people. We all like helping people. Don't get me wrong, but it's too time consuming to believe anyone that says that. I assure you, they like helping people that also are willing to pay them to help them, if they're being honest. And by the way, nothing is wrong with that.
Yep. Seth cracking the jokes. Love that. Chris, we'll wrap up. We'll be wrapping up soon. We'll answer these last couple questions here and then wrap up. But Chris, I'm in Tampa, Florida. Any grocery FBM you suggest that I see? Buy one, get one Publix, but never any matches. Any info? Thanks. Anything? Any information? I don't have a ton of RA experience in Florida.
I never did FBM with grocery, to be honest with you, and still I do very, very little. I think your only opportunity there is probably close to specific like holidays, maybe like again, like peppermint coffee, pumpkin spice coffee. If you're either first to market or a holiday where you're trying to beat, like I'm going to make something up that came to my head, turkey gravy, right? Like there's probably a mad dash right before Thanksgiving, and then it drops off tremendously. Yep. But to be honest with you, I don't think, I guess the only other thing would be meltables, maybe, because people can't FBA them. If you see great opportunity, like with chocolates or something like that. But again, for me, I never seek out FBM, right? That's just sometimes happens organically.
Yep. And then Chris followed up with, when I change my FBM shipping settings, it's default to 5 days. I put 0 in. Is it the same day shipping, or am I doing something wrong? I believe that, if you go to your shipping template, you should be able to change your handling time, and that's going to be 0, 1, or 2 day. I don't think you can go 5 day handling time. I don't think Amazon allows that slow of a handling. But 5 day might be your actual estimated shipping day time. So you can also modify. So the handling time's separate. And then you can also estimate the amount of time you think it's going to take to ship to certain regions based on your location. So if you're from the Midwest, it'll probably take 1 to 2 days to ship to other places in the Midwest. If you're shipping to one of the coastlines, it's probably going to take, anywhere from 4 to 6 to 7 days, depending. So Amazon has a pretty simple default template there. So you might want to just leave that because they know based on your location. But that's pretty simple. And you can, if you want to, brave the 0 day handling, you can. Just make sure that you understand, like if you get a lot of influx in orders, it's going to be, got to get those out same day, or at least print the labels same day. So
I would say too, though, to that, like unless you're specifically doing a lot of FBM, or it's like Christmas time, I would suggest not burdening yourself with 0-day shipping. Like
Yeah,
it's
it's just a
just,
lot. It really
yeah.
is a lot.
And I don't know that it's so advantageous. If someone needs something so incredibly fast, um, unless again it's Christmas time or a unique instance, it could create an easy thing to fall through the cracks.
Yep. And one more thing on that, it's like if it is like a rushed order, right? And it doesn't get there in time, right? Then maybe they return the order and
Yeah,
it gets damaged in shipping, and you're just dealing with more headaches than you really need to.
right.
Last question here, Michael. What are some tips to eliminate Amazon reporting that items are missing from my inbound shipments? Well, yeah, there's not a whole lot there. Basically, if there is something missing, Amazon misses units here and there all the time, but luckily they allow you to you can get reimbursement for those, but you have to go in manually and request it, but it has to be out like 90 days after the shipment closes. It's kind of a process, but yeah, we can talk more on that at a different time. I think it's you're going to be missing things here and there. You just got to keep up with it. You can reconcile, like I said, each one that you have missing. It's a pretty easy thing, but you just got to know how to do it. But not much
I think
to do to eliminate Amazon's, $15 an hour person scanning the product and missing one, right? I mean,
yeah. It's just part of the game, unfortunately. I would say the only practical tip I can actually think of, something that I've recently kind of done, if you have a lot of small items, I would actually create like for instance, I would create your own shipment with just those small items, close it out, put them all in one box, right? As opposed to think of a big box with a bunch of big items, and then the small ones might fall through to the bottom, and maybe you have some like packing paper in there and it gets caught in there and then they toss it out, right? So like if you're doing a lot of small items, do the small items in one shipment, do the big items in a different. Don't let the small items and the big items get commingled. Commingled might not be the right word because that's something in the Amazon world, but you know what I mean? Like,
yep.
just keep your big items and small items separate. If they have a small box filled with small items, very hard to like lose one of them, but totally understandable if it's a big box and it's taking up a tiny, tiny speck in there. It's the only real practical tip I can have you. And then everything else is just after the fact, using companies to like fight for you, or if you want to fight on your behalf for this.
Exactly. Awesome. Well, I think that's a good place to stop here. Thanks for everyone who joined us. We appreciate all the viewers. We'll be probably live again next week, similar time. So we'll have a new topic for you guys. Go follow Duke Does Amazon or subscribe to his YouTube channel. Subscribe to the AC Flips YouTube channel, and we'll see you guys in the next week.